welcome to pick up and touch any of these things. I'll be happy to describe. These were women's tools. These guys I knew, they were crazy sometimes. Stone was in there, so that's pretty rare find. Oh, it was in a grave. I was like, they're made by doing something that most of the time just to make flakes that don't go beyond the midline. I'll explain a little bit, especially if you want to drill. How about that? Kids love it. What do they say? It's a digging stick. It's just a more refined one. Wherever humans have lived, we've had digging sticks. Everybody has them. They got roots, shoots, you name it. Third on, I probably use that for digging grass. Of course, this is what put all the apple makers out of business. Bow and arrow, and it's out of Osage, but it's very much like European. Pointed at each end, arrow in the middle, pretty advanced design. So that's what this is like. It has a 50-some pound draw. This is quite capable of killing anything. Arrows. These are more on Algonquin, so they're river cannons. A lot of arrowhead out of wood, or that's a rib bone. You don't want to be hit with that. Trust me. They dug this guy up in New York State. Apparently, he was shot because quartz bones were loaded with turkey bone arrowheads embedded in the skeleton. He must have been. Yeah, that was a bad day for him. It really was. The rest of these points are flint or whatever. But wood was used quite a bit because we were in the eastern woodlands. I was telling earlier people that stone tools go through an orderly sequence of manufacture. This kind of shows the European way of doing things. If you're familiar, anybody familiar with salutary and laurel leaves, they go back to the. Oh no, there you go. And they tend to be these laurel types of points. And this one, nodule of flint, by using certain techniques, I'm getting control of the edge, thinning it down. And I'm not quite done with it, but from this thin one, it gets even thinner than that for salutary and laurel leaf. We don't know what our ancestors used them for. Were they just prestigious things? Nobody really knows. One theory as to where the Clovis axes are for these bifaces to produce the big Clovis points. And if you nap this bifacially, I can make that just as sharp as you want, man. I dull these edges. You could literally put it in half. It would work. And when they needed to make additional spear points, they would pull this out. So the theory is no Clovis axes that have been found because they were these got turned into those. So I don't know. Nobody. So with all this clothing, fire, buckskin's been rain tan, different stones, different properties. So for axes, adds. So somebody said your axe from your ads. Small one, you even find an Indian Steps Museum. I found them in they're actually that's a diabase, which is a lava that can be heated in perfect. Is that found in Maryland? Yes. Found a supply of that from. There's a Jurassic era aged unmetamorphosed diabase. That's the answer that came back from the University of Theology. Silt is what we call them today. We don't know what they call them, except that we do see in the primary documents Tamahack, Tamahuck, for Tamahucket. And why do you see all these different writings? Because people hear things differently. If you were in the Delaware area in the 17th century, you were represented by the Dutch. So if you were a Native American standing there, you were Native American holding that, and I'd go, and you'd say Tamahack. And I'd say, oh, Tamahack. And he writes it down. Whereas the French guy comes into your village, he says, qu'est-ce que c'est en français? You go, Tamahack. He's like, Tamahack. He's French. He's French. So you see, I mean, that's my guesswork, is that you see these names written down in different ways, depending on who was recording. You know, Smith, he was like, oh, what do you call this? Right? Tamahack. Oh, Tamahack. Oh, that sounds exalted. So we don't, some of these names are curious. Did we get the word tomahawk from it? Maybe. Seems reasonable, but nobody really knows. I also have a variety of things. This was asked so you can see the numbers of flakes that came off, the hand axe. With kids, and actually adults as well, I ask kids, if they're more exceptional, I'll say, do you think you could dig a hole right there with your bare hands? Kids, of course, yeah, of course I can. We're not bears, but using a tool as simple as that, you can dig and get your grubs and get down to the ground. Even the stick, very, very quickly, very efficient. So it's way more efficient. Even the debitage that I take off, the flakes can be made into, like this has been heavily used by kids. But when that was first knocked off, man, that was like, I mean, a razor blade. You could have gutted a moose. So flakes were widely used. I forgot to bring my composite point. So flint flake knife, real easy to make from blades that come off. I'll often, if I nap off a blade and it comes off real nice, oh, that's what I actually the deer ones with a blade no bigger than that, just to prove it. In the cases, you'll see obsidian, jasper, glass, and then here's a Palatine flake stone toolkit. It kind of shows you the possibilities that things go through. If you were hunting giant mammals in the north, like walrus, seal, whale, you really needed something big to do the job, wouldn't you? But making something like this, or even out of chert or flint, which is a harder material than obsidian, is real easy to break this. This is one of my highest level of skill levels to make something that long. This one too. Look at this one. This is more like a salute. See how thin that is? That's how that last gray one should end up. It'd be a real nice Salutrian marble. You know what that is? That's something y'all sit on every morning. Hold on. Toilet bowl porcelain. Yeah, so it's from the back tank. Really hard to nap without breaking it. And I used a wooden baton on that. That's like the highest level of my skill level right there. Hours. Because I had to go carefully. Very carefully. So the point I wanted to make was there's a real high liability you're going to break that thing. So people in the far north, Inuit people who needed big lance points went to this stuff. So up in the north, Hudson's Bay area, some of the slate deposits there are super hard. So it's way easier to peck out a rough shape of the big lance point that you need, and then to grind it carefully so you have a nice, smooth, pretty sharp edge. It's not going to be as sharp as obsidian, but you would not want to have a spear chucked into your guts with this on it. So this gives you a high probability that you're going to make a lot of points and not breaking in the process. So that was fully culture. So feel free to examine any of the things when you see them. I'm going to demonstrate over on this side. You feel free to sit in the grass, stand if you want. Carry the picnic table up. I'm going to do something. I'm going to use stone, but I'm going to show you how you can have fun with glass. Find an old glass dump you'll never be without material to practice. I learned more than 30 years ago how to do this, and I've had it ever since. Learned from some of the great, some of the guys at the Smithsonian. So batons can be made out of wood, like dogwood or mountain mahogany. Here are batons that are made out of moose antler. That's what I use. And then this is anybody know what that flaker is called? Okay, they call them ishies, and they were named for the last Yana Indian, who basically showed us how knapping obsidian and other types of stone. He was from the Mount LaSalle foothills, so we know a little bit about how knapping was done. A friend of mine carved that for me, but essentially the stick is called the ishi stick. They often look like this as well, and of course people are using antler. Let's go with a little bit of this. So we could treat this just like we would a large piece of flint, and I will, but I want to show you that all of this starts from the edge inward. So if you ever found a dump where somebody long ago was shooting, for those of you who are too young to remember this or know this, is that Clorox, the bleach, used to come in brown glass bottles. That's what it came in. Now it's white plastic. But a flint napper wants these because it's really good material to play with. Flakes always come off the bottom. So the idea is I need to remove a series of flakes to start what I'm doing. See that? I let them go. So all I'm doing really now is some trimming flakes. And there are some rules that happen. Number one, glass is sharp. And so obsidian is like 10 times sharper than an unused surgical scalpel. You didn't know that? See that? You can Google a micro photograph of the edge. And when you look at a micro photograph of a brand new scalpel, it looks like this. Here's what the edge looks like. The Rocky Mountains. And then they took a photograph of a piece of obsidian, of a flake, and snapped off. Micro photograph, so it's a straight line. So they think that that break goes all the way up to like 1 molecule of obsidian across. So it basically parts and moves cell membranes. It's super sharp. So here's where I've taken flakes. These flakes are coming off from the bottom, and they have a particular shape to them. Matter of fact, when you look at this, here's a flake. Toss it over to you. It's glass. That. When you look at that, you'll see ripples in it. You'll see waves in that, and that is what gives this fracture its name, conchoidal or shell-shaped fracture. That's what it gets. Flakes pop off from the bottom.
I mean, the outside bottom.
Say it again.
What part is the outside bottom?
This the outside is down here. And it's got something embossed in it. And when I finish working this thing, I'll take a flake that'll take that right off. You'll never have even known or seen that. My wife has a whole series. Where they want. She's got like 6 or 7 glass spear points I made. I'm always looking over my back. So these are trimming flakes. So here's another lesson. How long the flake is and how long it travels is based on the angle and how hard you hit it, how hard the percussor is. So this is a baton out of wood. And in general, when you're holding this thing like this and you're doing this, short flakes. Short, medium, long. Okay? So real short trimming flakes, medium, even sometimes held like this on my leg, long flakes. It always works like that. And it depends on how hard I hit it, of course. That then is influenced by experience, knowing what it's going to do or not do. You'll see me do this on occasion. I was describing that earlier where you all just were coming out. What I'm doing is I'll remove a series of flakes. That creates real sharp edges. If I strike there again with a baton, and this happens anyway. It gets these divots and it gets wear and tear. This was longer when I first made this. It's from hitting into sharp edges. So by grinding the edge, it's called grinding the platform. I then, after I remember, I took flakes off in this direction, grind the edge, ready in that direction. So you're always sort of working backwards. Like picture playing chess at the same time with the material. Okay, so it's still a little wide to be worried about that, but look, there's a nice trimming flake that came off of there. But boy, you can always look, especially in glass, you can see the ripples like in the ripples of a pond. It shows you energy went into the stone. So that flake went. One of the rules that I also play with, I don't know if this will draw on here or not. Try this side. No. Do it. Glass. But if my flakes, when I'm striking on here, only go to this edge, don't go past this midline, it gets thicker and fatter. If my flakes continuously travel beyond this midline, then this will get thinner and flatter. That's what you want. You want your biface. Native people share the same thing. I mean, they're wanting their stone tools to be flat. The flatter they are on the edge, the more efficient they are in terms of cutting. And my face is most vulnerable striking on the edges, the ends. In my case here, I'd like to get the longest tool out of it that I can. So distal and what the top of it's called. What? Yes, thank you. Proximal distal end. So I want to work that and follow that as best I can. Striking hard on an end is very vulnerable. The piece tends to end snap. Striking hard directly in the middle, same thing can happen. So you can see how those flakes now have been encroaching in the middle. So I'm going to look. This curves upward. This is all going to be waste. There's no way that I can straighten this, even if I was Superman, right? This is frozen. It's what it is. So a lot of that's going to be gone, and my projectile point will be in this section of it. And that would work with even any of these things. I'm doing this with this brown glass so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to do some trimming plates. You remember, these are real short plates. That's what I want. I don't want to hit real hard either. I'm likely to break them. I'd like to have a nice result. Yep, and if anybody needs to leave when they need to leave, you feel free to do so. You're not prisoners here. Like I said, there's a good show. If you want to see something that shows this kind of boring thing in a, if you're not doing it, that is, it's Carroll County Times. Go online. It's called Handcrafted Traditions. You'll see me making a Fox Creek spear point out of Flint. But Ken did a great job. He took a fairly boring thing and then he added dialogue afterward, and it flows pretty good. A lot of people used it to teach. All right, so we did short trimming flakes. Let's try a long one, see what we get. That one came off in a big way, but it shattered and disappeared. It's right here. The bit went in there just about to the midline, so it's an okay flake to take off. This is still, so anyway, hitting, if you hit on an edge that needs to be flaked in the opposite direction and you take off too many flakes, you will build the edge up in strength so that even Arnold himself won't be able to remove the flake from the edge. just how it works. So here's that grinding of the edge. I'll try to get another nice flake off of there. Sometimes to let some of the material fall away. There's that waste that has to go. Trim that up. But this is following, even though this glass is following the same rules as stone, following the same rules in terms of breakage. So here's a flake that traveled from here to there, way beyond the midline, which is good. And if the stone doesn't break right off, probably telling you something. Probably working that you shouldn't be. And was resisting breakage. So I'm trimming this because this is always gonna go. We'll see. I'll take this series of flakes off. You note that I'm looking at it. I'm checking to see if that edge is risen enough where I can come in and take more flakes off, which it hasn't yet. So you don't need an antler to do lip work. I thought as a man, I was desperate to get antlers. Didn't know where to get them back in the late 70s and early 80s. Check that. Okay. And then here's my grinding stone. Travel in there right up to here. So I went across the midline. Here's the last piece of the surface that was left from the factory. We'd like to get rid of that. But I fear I need to lower this edge a little more. Again, short, medium, long. And I wouldn't really want to wallop it. This either. Show you. Good question. Reason is, so if we have a biface that we're working on, we start to remove some flakes from it. Here's that midline I was talking about. Flakes have to travel at least for this to get thinner and flatter. So now that I've taken a series of flakes off right here, if I turn this thing so it's edge on now, and we were looking at the top of the edge, here's what it would probably look like after having been freshly flaked. So if that baton comes down on that sharp edge, it just will collapse and fall apart. That always happens. So what we're doing is I'm grinding it. It went from that pointy edge to this. Now it can withstand the impact and send the flake off the biface. And always, that's the way it has to work. It always works that way. So that's called the platform and the edge and grinding the edge, grinding the platform. And I've done it in my younger days. I don't know how many. I would just destroy flake after flake because I was being impatient with it. This is already taking on the shape of a biface. It went from that round thing you can see at the beginning, proximal and then the distal ends. This still is sweeping up, so I got to get rid of a lot of that material right there.
Trying to get larger flakes out of there to reuse those with something else?
Yeah, you could. That's why I wish I had brought my other. I have a point I made that has flakes embedded in the edges of it. So our ancestors came up with the idea of razor blade arrowheads. Remember the Iceman? Everybody here, you ever read about the Iceman they found in the Alps? Okay, so who he was. And it took them almost 30 years to find out that somebody had shot him in the back with a point like this. Wow. It was on an arrow, and the arrowhead was in his back. He probably pulled the shaft out, but it stayed in him. And they think that's what ultimately did him in. And that's why he collapsed. So our ancestors would take these and say, well, why should we do these bifacial arrowheads? It takes so much effort. I've just knocked off, 15 arrowheads potentially. So our ancestors would dull them here and dull it here, leaving that. I mean, that's as sharp as she gets, and attach that to arrow. And they were firing razor flakes at horses, giant Irish stags and whatever else they were hunting with. So there's a big advantage of that. If you've never seen the National Geographic, it was out in 2014, I think, is The Great Human Race with Dr. Schindler in that. You'll see him making one of those composite tools, embedding flakes into a spear point. It's pretty doggone neat. He'll be at the Primitive Tech Weekend. That's this coming weekend, 7th and 8th. Everything mostly program-wise happens on the 7th. And it goes from 10 to 4. It's free. And there's stuff for kids to do too if you have children. Arrow shooting, atlatl. All right, I just got rid of, on the other side, the last vestiges of what was molded into the glass. And now it's basically like an obsidian biface. Now the back is the same. That's still got the bottom of the glass. Good thing he's young. Me, I'd have been, oh, my shoulder. Oh, God. Well, I'm going to get rid of it. This is really no good. So again, look how I'm holding it. That's short. That's what you want. Short flakes. So check yourself for pieces of glass stuck in your hand. And I'm going to pick up one of these Flint and show you that too. That still too low. I got to get to that distal point. The proximal point is going to disappear to a certain extent for its length, because it's just see how it's. We don't want that. We want a nice, straight, deadly. There it is. Yeah, Primtech technology has been going on for 30 years, 30 plus. So you have a chance to shoot bow and arrow, atlatls, throwing sticks for rabbit sticks. And then there's demonstrations, how to make primitive arrows, how to work rhyolite. And Dr. Schindler will be talking about the wild potatoes of South America. Yep. Another reason to dull the other side, you don't have a glove on, because that's hyper sharp on this side. You're holding it and you strike it. Yeah, you're sending it into your hand. That's from experience. Now, when you're doing this and it's a real hot day, that's where those little shards of obsidian or glass decide to stick to your skin. Then you make mistakes. Pay for it. Okay, so I removed proximal end that was sort of bent upward, as it were. It wasn't bent, it's just that's how the glass was. I've removed that. And now I can go for a symmetrical tool. The tools you made were based on what your grandfather did, what your father did, what your ancestors did. This is trimming flakes. Remember, hold it parallel 90-degree edge so that you can then reshape it. I've taught this for years. I've had some adults who pick it up right away, and then others, it takes them a whole week to finally just sort of begin getting the hang of it. Everybody's different. But I have folks from different areas of the country. I have Nate Salzman from Jefferson Patterson Park. I'll be demonstrating. Matter of fact, it'll be an adult area napping pit. So you'll have you can sit down and give you the tools and some stone or some glass, and you can work. Try to learn. Nate, he's a good teacher. So here's the new proximal end. I got rid of the old thing, and now I can begin to work on this to get it to be the way we want it. It's really a remarkable thing to look up at the light with it. And let me show you a piece of flint. If anybody wants to look at it, certainly can. So if you were starting with a chunk right out of the ground, you need to get in there. And what we're aiming is a cone of fracture. So when you see me striking, I'm literally sending a cone of fracture. If you look on this thing, you'll see the cone frozen into the stone right there. So I was taking a flake off in this direction in the 1980s. And when I pulled that off, I was like, holy smokes, look at that. There's that cone of fractures being aimed into the stone. Now, aiming it into the stone like this is counterproductive because that's not helping. You know, we're aiming just like these long dead people made those. They're aiming that energy into the edge to remove flakes in that fashion. So this was in Virginia, and I did that. But that's all it is. You're just aiming a cone of fracture into the stone. And then it goes through the various iterations. Chunk. There's that piece of flint I just had in my hand, the big guy. Oh, right there. Look at that. You lost it too. There's more eyes on than me.
It was camouflaged by the moss.
Yeah, camouflaged by the rest of the stones. So I'm going to need something heavy duty for this guy. I'll probably need something for my leg to protect it. So I got just a pad. It's likely they did the same thing. You could use a hammerstone. This is not big enough to do that. That one probably is, but I'm going to give it a try with the antler baton. So you can see in this case, this is chalk. We don't have flint in the area. We don't have any. Flint occurs in chalk beds. So this is from Texas. So Texas Cretaceous period is when this was laid down. They mine it for the chalk and shove the flint to one side. I'd like to be there. Select what I need. So you can see as I take off the outer chalk layer, the flint underneath being exposed. Here's a potential you were asking. There's probably an arrowhead hiding in that. That's enough material there. It could be an arrowhead hiding. There's definitely an arrowhead hiding in that. Or a knife blade. So a lot of those things in the process, that's what this display over there kind of shows you, that during the process of shaping an individual piece into something, you're creating a lot of material that you can use for other advantages. Some of it will be junk. Nothing you can do about it. But you'll note I'm working on that outer, I'm working on the edge. There we go. Look at that flame. There's definitely tools hiding in that. Right there's a spoke shade. Look at this. I'll show you. People would take advantage of those natural shapes that you would get. And they're often probably working They're working green wood, probably. See, do this on my pants. Perfect. And it's, so this would be for smoothing a spear shaft, arrow shaft, shaping wood to make a bow, because you've got that natural spoke shave effect right there. This right here is deadly sharp too. I mean, that's sharper than any knife that I have on me. Yep. Again, you'd save all those things, and I generally do. So again, see how I'm holding it now, because I want more medium length flakes to come off. The only way for me to do that is to
After you spend hours doing that,
Uh-huh.
the hand that you're holding the stone with, that you're working on, does that ever get numb just from the vibration? No?
But it does hurt when you hit it. Which I've done. Where I you hit the edge of your skin, and it smashes it between the stone and the antler. You get an instant blood blister. It's murder. I don't do that as often anymore. With my early days. Yeah. Now, again, it's a matter of your experience. You can learn all these things and get all the rules, but that doesn't mean the way you're hitting it, how hard you're hitting it, is going to produce what you want. And undoubtedly, our ancestors had their own terminology as well. That's all lost to antiquity. There's a great one. That's got lots of meat to it, where you can produce, yeah, real nice. Look at that. Look how cleaned up the face. Yeah, that's good. That's a good piece. This, unfortunately, you see this line right here? See that line? That's got a fracture that I didn't cause. That's just whatever. So this is actually going to fall away at some point. I don't know how far it goes in this way, but I can see that's what's going to happen. And around here we have lots of, there's a knife right there. Dog bits here, protect your hand. Pull out your brain. All this. Paper brain, just pull it out. Then you can do a test in front of everybody. Ooh. That's what I'm saying. It's a primitive tool, but it's not a primitive edge. That's sharper than any doggone thing you got in your pocket right now. Right there. You could clean a whole deer with this. Easy peasy. That's why you should always carry your paper brain. So we have a lot of gymnastics on this piece to get it down. Another nice blade hiding in there. Also, if you ever come to learn flint knapping, you always empty your shoes before you go elsewhere. Be sorry. So what I'm doing now is getting control, trying to get control of the edge. I have to use this grinding stone now to take down some of the sharp edges. I've already gone around the perimeter. This core. That's what we call this now. This is a core. See places where it's thin. Sometimes I do little trimming edges like this because I don't feel like using that. Check the edge again. Imagine people during the Stone Age, my eyes started going up on me when I was 44. So then you can relegate it to squinting. You're going to be the tool maker for the village. That'd be one way to earn your keep. So we're losing a lot of that. Now see this big square side. We don't want that. How do you get rid of it? Well, we get rid of it by taking a flake off this way, and flake this way, and this way, and this way. So every time I take a flake off, it sets up the stage for the next one. So I had removed the flake here, on the side, turn it over, straight right here's my platform. So there is a part where that thing collapsed on it and created a stem fracture. Unfortunately, I think we can clean that up. Even the stone you're working on can have different densities as you go through it. This gray line in here is not as good as the lacquer material up the top. There's that edge that's going to break. Inside of it. Any questions? Feel free.
Yeah, you're talking about the hardness, and I've read where they where they fired the stone
Yes.
to temper the stone. That's
Correct.
pretty amazing.
Yep.
Even think about that back in the day.
I think that was a happy accident. You
Yeah.
know, they probably in an area with
Yeah.
lots of flint.
Uh
They made a fire ring, and then one of them went, "Hey, look what Grok could do!"
huh.
And discovered that Jasper knife
Yeah.
that's up on there. That was heat treated.
Right, Jasper
I
is
heat
one of the
treated
ones that they had figured out they could do that.
So far, that artificial line running through there hasn't dropped away. I'm actually surprised. As you can see, there's a lot of waste when you go down through these things. A really amazing place to visit is South Mountain, Pennsylvania, because where Carbo Run is, was a massive formation of metarrhylite. And when you get to a certain point on that mountain, walking around its perimeter, you come upon a section of forest that's covered with thousands and thousands of broken bifaces. They're everywhere because they were working at the source and when they were working them down. When they broke one, they went, yeah, what the? They picked up another piece of stone. Those were usually demilitarized zones too, where they sort of agreed not to fight when they would. Everybody was exploiting that particular stone resource. So I've got getting control over it. We're losing that squared edge little by little, but I got to go slow and steady. This is basically nice flake here. So almost. And I don't know, is there's somebody else speaking after me? There might be, in which case don't collect them.
Yeah, we have a few more after you, so we'll wrap it up if anybody has any last questions or
Alright.
things.
Yep. And like I said, walk around the tables, look at the things. Cromwell Valley Parks where I'm at, we have a primitive technology laboratory there, and that is where we do print tech programs every month, each month. Everything from cooking to making stone tools to working with clay, fire manipulation, how to make fires for that matter.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
There you go. Really cleaned up that area right there. typical sugary
Yes,
quartz. Quartzite, technically. That's from the park. That second to the last one is the quartzite I have at Cromwell Valley. We found a couple of rock walls that look like they were being utilized by native people in the area, indigenous culture, because they're big rock walls that had these gigantic flakes along one edge. And you can really only produce that by heating the rock face in the winter time. And then it will fracture off the main face of the stone. And we saw a lot of evidence for that. Sure, it wouldn't be the greatest stuff to work. It's better than.
Yeah.
So I'm almost at that stage where the piece of glass was. It's going to be my proximal end. Here will be my distal end. And we're trying to get control of it. It's not as thick as it was, but still got some flattening to go.
When do you decide that?
Well, in this case, with something this big, I'd like to have either a spear point or a knife blade out of it. So I have something in mind, either a stem point of some sort or a notched corner, like a Fox Creek, Selby Bay.
So you can kind of like see it in there before you.
Yeah, you have to. And that's one of the reasons I have with kids can't really do this because of two reasons. One is they're not big and strong enough to do it yet. You have to have a certain level of strength. And B, if you're a child under 12, humans don't have the greatest ability to think abstractly at that age. So for them to manipulate it in their mind, it's hard to do. Now they can bang on them, but it gets me in trouble with parents and moms and dads, and they come up, oh, my Johnny wants to try this. I'm like, I look over Johnny, 3-year-old Johnny, I'm like,
Yeah.
but I don't do that anymore because everybody goes, he's exceptional. I give them the dullest material I have the kids sit down and they just want to beat on them.
Right, right.
And I let them do that. And parents happy, kids happy.
Everybody's happy.
And
That's
I'm
right.
happy. That's right. They come up, oh, that little Tammy. Just can't do it. I don't want to hear that. So. Yep, that happens to me down at Jeff Patton at St. Mary's. So trimming up the edge. You're gonna edge down on one side, but that brings it up on the other and allow me to take a go. So I turn it over. Now we're going for long. It's long. Which one, Matt? Get a nice smooth face right here. There. Beginning to look like a pie face. Beginning. Control of the edge. Goes through these changes little by little.
So I was just gonna say.
Yeah, I did it to the internet. There was 5 people watching with us, so they said they could hear. You're ready. We can be ready.
I just wanted there to be.
Yeah. We were finishing up out there. I gave everybody like a 5 minute. I'm gonna go run and use the bathroom real quick, and then we'll be ready to go.
All kinds of marketing costs. The head of the Society of Play Fight Research he talked about all kinds of no experience, that's fine. If you're a professional archaeologist, that's great too. So, and with that, I'll introduce Dr. Sterner, and she's about in the Basin of the Natural History Society. We have quite the extensive collection of artifacts, and she and her students have been working on that. Very interesting.
I guess the folks are like,
I'm relatively new to the National History Society, so I started, I'm new to everything out here. I did my PhD at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee back in 2018, and worked in cultural resource management for a while, doing archaeological projects around the Midwest. And then in 2020, I accepted a position at Towson University. And you know, when I was working in Wisconsin, I was working at one of the largest archaeological repositories in the state. So when I was teaching, I had no problem finding artifacts for my students to work with in my classes. There was always something that needed to be inventoried or analyzed or cleaned or something like that. So there was no shortage of projects for people. But Towson does not have in-house archaeological collections. And when I showed up here, and I hadn't done any field work yet to give my students something to work on, I said, well, I know what I can do. I'll find some local institution that looks like they might need some help, and I'll bet they'll just take my students' labor for free. And it turns out it was true. So I got in touch with the archaeology curators here, who at the time were Lisa Krause and Jason Feldman, both of whom are historians. A lot of archaeologists, contact archaeologists in my area of study society. And it turns out that's what
program for archaeological technicians. Oh, I just began to echo. Is that a good thing? Oh, okay. Okie dokie. Is it? I don't know. I'm not in charge of the volume, so it's too loud. Somebody needs to. I don't know how to control the volume. This isn't my setup. So the